Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Josh Scorchel of the top 10 remastered video games. Let's hop in and check it out.
About a year and a half ago, we tackled the top 10 remakes in gaming. Now's the time for the remasters. Of course, whether something counts as a remaster or a remake is a debate all on its own. Many of them tend to blur the line,
Yeah,
and each
true.
person has their own qualifications. Under our definition, the main thing a remaster changes is the presentation. Gameplay.
Yeah, I would say a remake is literally taking the first game, or any of the games, and just giving it a whole brand new story that's not the same as what was in the original. A remaster is literally taking the first game, changing not a damn thing of the story, but giving it the freshest coat of paint you can possibly give.
Play editions should be limited to quality of life features and possibly new story additions. And this is where I put the Sly Cooper remaster. If we had one!
Ooh. Ooh. But no, I feel that pain. And they gotta give it to us. They got 4 games and not a damn thing. Like, come on. Never gets tired of that intro. Number
Nowadays,
10.
there isn't a person alive who hasn't at least heard of SpongeBob SquarePants. We know the memes, the voices, the tragedies.
Oh yeah, Tom Kenny.
Even those tragedies. And of course, we know the games.
Yeah.
Arguably, one of the most well-known is Battle for Bikini Bottom. Speedrunners especially love the heck out of it.
Yeah, that's right. It actually got a remaster called Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated.
This game, and why wouldn't they? It's a zany, colorful adventure with cartoony platforming, open world, linear levels, and a story that feels pulled straight from the show. In an age where collectathons were losing steam, this felt like a diamond in the rough. Naturally, with SpongeBob's popularity, it was only a matter of time before a remake of its most popular games came out. Gotta keep that cash cow flowing somehow. And so, in 2020, the world was given Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. And, honestly, it's more or less the same, but in a good way. The biggest changes to the game, obviously, are the graphics. The colors pop out a whole lot better, and the levels feel more on par with the cartoon. I mean, the Kelp Force level's still shit, but at least you can see where you're going now.
Ah,
The
yeah,
character
that's
models
good.
got a
Very
massive makeover, reflecting their more modern appearances and giving them smoother animation and cutscenes. They also have their own idle animations, which of course means more memes. They also introduced a multiplayer mode that was cut from the original game where you do battle with a giant robotic Squidward. Admittedly, there's
About time.
not a whole lot to it, but at least you have the option, and Robo Squidward looks pretty cool. And the biggest godsend of all, fast travel.
Oh, thank the Lord.
That's right. No more pulling your hair out trying to find the location of a missing golden spatula. You can just click on the silver spatula on the menu and boom. Now, all these changes are great, but the game still feels mostly the same. The gameplay and the story are the same. Sandy's still OP, and the voice clips are reused from the original. Now, this is good
I think that's
because
okay.
it has all the
I mean, considering the whole fact that, well, the voice of Moment Man is no longer with us.
nostalgia and zaniness we loved about the original with a fresh look. But what's not so great is they still didn't get Clancy Brown to do Mr. Krabs' lines. For whatever reason, they couldn't get him for a lot of the games in the earlier days. But it's the 2020s. Would it have been that hard to get him in the booth to give his character his proper voice? You got him for the next game, Cosmic Shake. Spoiler alert, that game's fun too. That one nitpick aside, I still had a lot of fun with Rehydrated. I actually beat one of the Sand Mountain slides and got the sock on my first run. A lot of folks were legitimately shocked. Oh, and that Rube Goldberg puzzle that journalists hated? Beat it on my second try. Not to flex or anything, but if you're going to trash a game because you couldn't figure out a puzzle, I'll give you the same advice I gave Kotaku on Metroid Dread. Get good.
Jaws is not pulling any of the punches. On to number 9. From the bottom of the sea,
Let's go back to the blissful era of 2016. Feels like forever ago, I know. You're tuning into E3, back when that was a thing, and you're watching Sony's presentation. It's pretty much your standard game reveals until something special happens. You might even call it insane.
Why do I feel like I should know what this is? Wait. Aha! That's why! The Insane Trilogy!
Look who it is!
Crash Bandicoot, that's
Yep,
right.
After 8 years of absence, because Naughty Dog was busy milking The Last of Us for all it's worth, Crash Bandicoot himself rose from his grave with a remake of not 1, not 2, but 3 whole games to celebrate his return in one package. The Insane Trilogy. This compilation takes the
Perfect.
initial first trilogy of Crash games and refurbishes every bit of them. The graphics
Oh,
are
yeah.
completely
All
overhauled
beautiful.
into crisp HD, painting everything from the old games into a beautiful new work of art. The game plays so tightly, bringing Crash back like he never left. The old Crash games fell into a sliding scale of difficulty where
Truly
beating the game is
beautiful.
one thing, getting 100% is another thing entirely. And oh boy, now everyone got to suffer the pain of getting all the platinum relics. Yeah, presenting
It's
the
all
Dark
optional.
Souls of platforming, Crash Bandicoot. And yeah, you know this is a trilogy. They didn't cut back on cramming this game with content. Even the unused level Stormy Ascent, Crash 1's Ultimate Challenge, was included. This isn't a package of 3 individual games. It's one massive game with the content of a trilogy's worth. With the absolute mess of Crash's history, since Naughty Dog passed the IP around to be abandoned, the Insane Trilogy was the ultimate way to
Oh,
win
yeah.
back the fan base with a clear head and a bright future. Oh, you thought they were done
good
after
to
a
be
single
back.
game. Nope. The Insane Trilogy gave Crash enough momentum to have another remake of Crash Team Racing, this time a new original game, and was enough of a success to convince Activision to bring Spyro back from Skylanders Limbo. When a
Oh,
remaster
yeah.
is enough to bring 2 series back into relevance after so long without any games, then yeah, the Insane Trilogy
So
was
much
more of a
power.
success. It's a good thing that Vicarious Visions was able to keep, of course. Activision did an Activision. Still, Crash came
Damn it,
back, in
Activision.
spite of everything.
For 5 minutes. Could
Literally.
you not be yourself? For 5 minutes!
Well, we move from the disaster of Activision to number 8 with
Oh, DuckTales. No, I'm not talking about the 2017 reboot. I'm talking about the original series that aired in 1987, back when nobody
streaming
had
on
to make
Disney
as many
Plus.
Disney sucks now jokes as possible. Though let's be honest, I'm not gonna stop finding material for them anytime soon. While not as popular as Disney properties at the time, it was still iconic enough to garner itself a fan base.
Ooh,
So a
that
couple
has a
years
hop.
after the show premiered, Capcom published a video game for the NES titled, well,
DuckTales.
I'm
Woohoo.
sorry. What was your name again?
When it came out, the overall reaction was fine. It had good game design and decent gameplay mechanics,
Yeah,
which was
pretty
more than I can say
simple.
for other licensed NES games at the time. But there were also some people commenting that it was more for younger audiences that watched DuckTales the show at the time, and with how the game could be beaten in a meager half hour. So when the game
you
got
really
a
beat it in 30
remaster in
minutes?
2013, one of the first additions was to add an extra 90 minutes of gameplay that included more story content. Oh, and with full voice acting for the characters I see. And
that's
is
not
that
bad.
the original VA for Scrooge McDuck, Alan Young?
Not the Beagle Boys again. If
Ooh.
they think they can stand between Scrooge McDuck and his 3 cubic acres of cash, they've got
No, that is straight up the original voice, and now I am hyped.
another thing coming.
As for the graphics and gameplay, it sticks its 2D sprites onto 3D backgrounds to create what we in the industry call 2.5D. As long as it doesn't look like the characters are on a green screen, I don't care what you call it. The game also includes an on-screen
Ooh.
map for easier difficulties,
Okay,
an
that's
easier
good.
pogo jump, as well as a tutorial level set in Scrooge's money bin. Story-wise, characters who are more in the background in the original game, including Magic Dispel and the Beagle Boys, are given a much larger role in the remaster. When it comes
Now
to
that's
doing this sort of
good.
thing for an NES title, DuckTales Remastered does everything, and then some. Keep in mind, this was also
Now this would definitely make any of the fans go woohoo.
released in 2013, 4 years before DuckTales would get rebooted. So this remaster was likely an introduction for those who didn't grow up with the original series. And for those who did, it serves as a reimagining of a childhood classic for an older generation. A good one, I mean. Adults usually
Yeah.
expect more out of video games than kids do, so seeing the DuckTales game expand as much as it did
Ooh,
shows that the
Hydra.
team behind it cared
Oh,
about their audience.
dragon?
Now, if only Disney would start showing that same care again instead of, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, everything else they're doing. You know what's bad when Disney's most recent success is a sequel to a film that wasn't even produced by them?
Ooh. Disney catching those straight L's, and we move on from the Duck of Gold to number 7.
When it comes to remasters or just video games in general, appearance is a crucial factor. You might have good gameplay and a compelling story, but if your characters look like...
Yay!
yeah, you just lost a customer. Such is the case
Mark.
with Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I've talked about this game a couple of times at this point, and I continue to state that the design is not as bad as people say it is. But when the original Wind Waker was released on GameCube in 2002, people really didn't care for the shift in art design, which made Link look a bit more chibi. Little did we know that chibi spin-offs had the potential to be, oh, so much worse.
Yeah.
In fact, the cartoon art style of Wind Waker was so polarizing that the game only sold 4.6 million copies, which pales in comparison to the sales of other Zelda games.
Oh,
Thus,
damn.
they would revert back to the original art style when they released Twilight Princess in 2006. However,
Sold
that didn't
twice
stop
as
the
much.
cartoony Wind Waker from getting a cult following, and the game would arguably reach its full potential when it got an HD remaster on the Wii U in 2016. Wind Waker HD didn't just up the graphics, it utilized an entirely new lighting engine, really bringing out the colors and giving us more lens flares!
Woohoo!
It's so beautiful!
Say goodbye to your
Wind Waker
eyes.
HD did make things a lot less cumbersome, shortening the Triforce Shard quest, giving the Picto Box more storage space, easier sailing mechanics, adding the ability to shift to first person when using long-range weapons, and that's just to name a few. They even got rid of the Forsaken Fortress. One can only dream. There were also
Of course
some
not.
additional control methods meant specifically for the Wii U gamepad. You can access your inventory without needing to pause the game and switch between items more quickly. It's incredibly convenient for when you need to access Wind Waker in a pinch. With all these improvements made to Wind Waker, the HD remaster would sell half the
Oh.
copies that the original sold.
Oh, dear.
But then again, let's be honest, it was on a failing console.
The
Yeah.
failure was spectacular, even for me.
Honestly, I just wish that people would let go of their backwards attitude towards Wind Waker already. Even if you weren't impressed with the original GameCube game's appearance, the HD remaster more than solidifies its cult following. Yeah, I could argue that they could have given the GameCube art style a few more touch-ups rather than just leaving it unchanged, but it's not that the art style didn't translate
That's a
well
thing,
into
Halo
HD.
2 Heel.
In fact, it arguably looks better thanks to the rest of its technical advancements. It almost makes you wonder how Wind Waker would look on the Switch. Unfortunately, instead of porting Wind Waker to Switch to make more money, they're just going to continue to target people that use emulators and review their games on YouTube. Seriously,
How could
Nintendo,
you?
can you stop being Nintendo for once?
I don't give a damn what you people want. That's the problem.
That's the problem, exactly, yeah. Well, we move on from Nintendo to number 6.
So, this is awkward. We have to sing the praises of another Nintendo remaster, and one that was on the Switch. Well then, Xenoblade has been going through quite
Oh,
the renaissance
okay,
throughout
Xenoblade.
Switch's lifetime. Xenoblade 2 brought the series back to the limelight, and Xenoblade 3 showed off its staying power. But none of this would have happened without the first Xeno game that started it all, Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Wait, I meant
Bum, bum.
Xenoblade. And great, now I'm getting blasted by Xenosaga and Xenogears fans. Of course. Xenoblade
I have
Definitive
nothing.
came out at just the right time, continuing the hype of 2 while 3 was in production. Not only did it upgrade the graphics to the same standards of 2, but it added quite a few quality of life options as well. Marking for positional
Again.
attacks and
Again, I don't know anything about Xenoblade. I've never played it, never watched it, so I have no real comments on it.
auto run was one thing, but how about making the Rebuilding Colony 6 quest, one of the most tedious side quests in the series, much easier? Never mind new difficulty settings, better UI for menus and side quests, the fashion equipment so you can always have your best looking gear on, and time attack mode. The biggest improvement would be Expert Mode, which allows you to stockpile XP and be able to freely choose your level at any time. An amazing
That's not
option
bad.
since the item
That's
drop
actually pretty
rate
good.
does depend on the level, and you can make yourself weaker to make the game harder. Seriously, this should be in every RPG. That and the active Time Lore system from Final Fantasy XVI. Oh, and ×2 speed, no random encounter toggles, and the new feature in Borderlands 3, which lets you play with a max level character from the start after beating the game. I guess that would just be New Game Plus, though.
Yeah,
like
that
as
is just
Xenoblade
New
2
Game
had
Plus.
Torna the Golden Country and Xenoblade 3 has Future Redeemed, this shiny new port gets its own short adventure with Future Connected. However,
Oh,
unlike the other
cool,
two, which are
cool.
considered amazing standalone experiences, Future Connected is more mixed. It's
Whoa,
not
Wind Fit.
bad, but it takes away visions and chain attacks to make a more streamlined system. Plus, it's just there to foreshadow Xenoblade 3 without giving a satisfying story otherwise. Regardless, Xenoblade Definitive is a fantastic port of one of the best Nintendo games and one of the best JRPGs of all time, and I'm super happy that Monolith took
Seems
the
like
time
it gets
to
some
make
good
it.
hype.
Though if they could also port over Xenoblade X, that would be great. I blame Nintendo. X is a game that's tough to port over.
Well, we move from the swinging cyber sword to number 5 with.
Even after Zero Time Dilemma came and went, people still have fond memories of the previous two Zero Escape games, 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. The folks at Spike Chunsoft seemed to notice and gave us a compilation of the first two, the Nonary games. Let's get the good stuff out of the way first. The enhancements for 999 were fantastic. We finally got voice acting, making so many emotional moments hit that much harder. This was helped by the VAs of all characters reprising their roles. On the technical side of things, we got the flowchart. In the original game, you had to religiously keep multiple save files. Now you can freely jump to any point in the timeline. Basically, the visual novel equivalent of keeping open the page whenever you make a decision in a choose-your-own-adventure book.
Oh,
Hey, I'm
that's
not
a
trying to
classic.
judge. Out loud. Unfortunately, the transition wasn't completely flawless. Without giving anything away, a twist in the true ending doesn't hit nearly as hard due to only having a single screen. That, and they took out the upside-down Sudoku. Context is for the weak. As for Virtue's Last Reward,
Sudoku.
why
I don't
is
get it.
Sigma still silent? Yes, there's a reason for it, but you could have added it in as a bonus mode or a new game plus. Whatever. I could go on, but I'll just sum it up like so.
On the one hand, gold. On the other hand, painful, agonizing failure.
Well, we move on from the puzzles to number 4 with.
Remastering a game is one thing, but doing so for a whole lineup of games can be quite a task, especially back in the good old days. Nonetheless, the olden days still bestowed us with one of the first remaster collections, Super Mario All-Stars.
Oh, yeah.
You can never find a plumber when you need one. They all come along at once.
This SNES one-and-done package gives us all the original NES games lined up in a nice, tuned-up 16-bit graphics. It looks really good on Mario 2 and 3, but Mario 1 especially gets an amazing
look at
glow-up
that.
with much more detailed enemy designs
damn.
and backgrounds. Seriously, look at those blocks. I just want to eat them. I
Ow.
think that would work. And on top of that, we even get lost levels, an official localization of the Japanese Mario 2, for better or for worse. Fun fact, the developers
poison mushroom.
themselves actually struggled to playtest this mess. Fortunately, the package also comes with the feature to externally save after completing each world in the respective games, making them much more comfortable to play casually. While there are still technical issues that are present from the original games, if anyone's just looking to play the old games with a better coat of paint, then this collection still fulfills those needs just fine.
Oh,
Plus, it set up a pretty good foundation for the Mario Advance games being straight-up remakes for 2 and 3. Last levels are gonna stay
guess
shut
that's
for
fine.
good, though.
See what I mean? He's completely Tonto.
Well, we move from the hopping plumber to number 3 with.
Final Fantasy III was a big stepping stone for
Final
the series.
Fantasy one.
The ability to change jobs gave you an unprecedented level of customization. The jobs themselves were given new abilities to make them more defined. Unfortunately, the whole thing was crippled by the capacity point system. In order to change jobs, you needed to spend a certain amount of them. Got a cool looking new job you want to try out? Want to bring another white mage for that boss you're stuck on? Better go farm some capacity points. But no, I'm not abbreviating that.
What are capacity
You
points?
know why. For all the improvements made in the 3D version, the replacement for capacity
You know what?
points
Never
was
mind.
arguably worse. The job adjustment phase. I have to deal with nerf stats for a certain amount of battles. Thankfully, the Pixel Remaster finally gave us what is easily the definitive version of 3. In addition to the revamped visuals and soundtrack, the remaster completely abandons any and all punishment for switching jobs. That alone earned it a place on this list.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know this is
definitely.
short, but trust me, those who played the
Free
game
transfer.
know. And it also went one step beyond. You can save in the final dungeon. And there are restore points too. It only took them
so
31
beautiful.
years. I was in diapers then.
From the glory of Final Fantasy III to number 2, the silver medal.
Metroid Prime, the 5th major game in the series, and the first to take Samus to a whole new dimension. The third dimension.
3D!
Because it's their first 3D game. I'm not proud of that one, but I'm not apologizing either. Anyway, it was also the first in the series to implement the first-person shooting aspect, which became a much welcomed addition. It kickstarted the Prime trilogy and became one of the most influential games of all time. Years later, in 2023, the game was rejuvenated for the Switch. How did they do? Well, it's number 2, ain't it? The minute
that means
you turn it on, you'll notice one of the biggest overhauls to the original. The graphics. The lighting and environmental upgrades make the world around you feel more alive and foreboding. Not to mention Samus herself gets a bit of a makeover. She looks much more realistic than normal, while still holding on to her recognizable traits. Not only does it help her match the enhanced ambience, but realism actually looks good on her. A lot of fans definitely say so. The rooms also feel more interesting, which is essential for when you have to backtrack. You don't have to worry about lingering gases from the frickin' blast cap mushrooms. But arguably, the most welcomed addition to the remaster? The controls. The original Metroid Prime's controls worked fine, but they feel a bit dated compared to today's standards. You couldn't aim your arm cannon without the camera getting in the way.
I can't press the fire button and jump at the same time!
Wrong, because now the controls are customizable. Along with the classic GameCube controls, you also got the dual stick system, which makes aiming and moving much easier. For those who fancy the Wii port, there's also pointer motion controls. And finally, the hybrid system, which gives us the best of both the GameCube and Wii gameplay. Whatever your preference, it's still available for you to decide and make your experience that much more enjoyable. This revitalized package also comes with a new extras menu, your firearm having additional shots while being charged, and the return of charge beam animations. I don't know why the Wii port axed them. Overall, it's a joy seeing the Metroid franchise getting the love it needed for the Switch. Polishing one of its most popular titles was a great step in the right direction. It gives me a lot of hope for the upcoming 4th Prime game. Not so much for you-know-who's hissy fit over skill issues.
Well, we move on from space bounty hunting to the honorable mentions.
Double Fine's LucasArts Remasters. The changes are mostly cosmetic, but it's nice to see those classic titles brought to life again. Dark Souls Remastered. Way better frame rate and graphics and more slots open for online play. Monkey Island 1+2 Special Edition. Now with updated graphics and voice acting. It's also the very last time we get to hear Earl Bone as LeChuck. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door really blurred the line between remake and remaster here, but the results are still great.
And from that, we move on to number 1. The Golden Remaster is...
Alright, Sonny, consider yourself pinched.
Who are these guys?
Strap in, boys.
Sam
it's
and
gonna
Max.
be a long one. It's funny we don't talk about Sam and Max that much since they've got an interesting history. 2 indie comic characters got their own LucasArts game back in 1993, and it became a cult classic with adventure players. They nearly got 2 sequels, but neither made it past the cutting room floor. But then along came Telltale Games, and boom! 3 seasons worth of Sam and Max misadventures. The humor, music, and gameplay kept people hooked for years. It became one of the company's longest-lasting series before their real cash cow showed up. But then,
The Walking Dead.
Silence.
Yep.
Outside of a few guest starring roles and Easter eggs, we've had no new Sam & Max games for over 10 years. On the one hand, Season 3 was a great stopping point for this ongoing series. But on the other hand, Telltale had their grips on this IP so that no one else could make a game for the duo. Then
They had a
2018 came
chokehold.
around and... well, that happened. For most games, the story would end there. But instead... I like it already.
This feels oddly familiar.
And thus from Telltale's, at the time, Ashes wrote Skunk Cake Games, who painstakingly brought the trilogy back to life with the remasters. Polished dialogue clips, updated character models, fitting character redesigns, concept ideas that were lost in the original cuts, and gorgeous cinematic lighting and cutscenes. And to really spice things up, brand new music tracks composed by the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Emerson Johnson. But the changes didn't stop aesthetic-wise. Most of the time, they helped cut down the backtracking from the original releases. And most importantly, they reinvented the gameplay system for the first 2 seasons. This is a mercy because before, trying to point and click on a console was a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
We don't talk about the Wii port. Also,
Yeah,
spoiler
the
alert
Wii.
for Season 3, they found a clever way to bring in a mechanic that was exclusive to the PS3 release and made it publicly available across platforms. Just as an added labor of
not
love,
bad.
they sprinkled in a few Easter eggs in the background, some of which double as foreshadowing. Oh, and there's this really cute one in Season 2 where Clementine from The Walking Dead makes a cameo just to say hi to us.
Thank you, Sam and Max.
It doesn't do much, but I just thought it was cute.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, it is a little cute.
There's an elephant in the room. And
That's
there's
an actual
another.
elephant.
Teehee. There's one change that didn't sit right with some fans. Bosco. For the remaster releases, they had Oogie Banks re-record his dialogue, because, let's be honest, a white guy doing a stereotypical black guy voice isn't really kosher anymore.
Yeah,
I
had to
admit Banks
call
had a
him
rough
issues.
start in Season 1, but he got better over time and even re-recorded a few takes for one of the patches. But when he redubbed Bosco's lines, they also took out a few jokes that didn't really age well in their eyes. Of course, you
Yeah,
got
I mean,
the
that's
bitter
fine, it
Betties who
makes
complained
sense.
about how they censored the game or made it more woke. Okay, first of all.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Second, for what I've seen, they only quote-unquote censored like a small handful of lines, and they only did this for the first season. I mean, yeah, it sucks that the jokes they changed
1 out of 3.
kind of lost their edge, but I'm less critical because this wasn't a corporate move. They made these changes on their own terms. Also, I don't know, there are way funnier jokes in the games that remained untouched. Did anyone really miss this gem?
It's because everyone on the internet has to pick an avatar, like a dwarf or an orc, or a hot young 15-year-old girl curious about the adult world and willing to experiment.
Wow, I'm so distraught that we lost that one. And if even that still bugs you, because, hey, it's perfectly understandable you'd like art preserved in its original state, Skunk Ape has your back there too, as they re-release the OG games as free DLC for each season. So hey, you
hell
get the best
yes.
of both worlds, everyone wins. At the time of this video, the entire trilogy has been remastered, and Skunk Ape Gaines' future is a mystery. Will they remaster Sam & Max Hit the Road, or one of Telltale's other older titles, or will they try their hand at making an entirely new game from the ground up? Whatever happens,
You never
it's
know.
comforting to know that there's
You
a
never
team
know.
passionate enough to bring this duo out of obscurity with a fresh coat of paint. While they may not be huge names in the video game industry, support from fans and Skunk Ape Games has ensured that the freelance police will stand the test of time. Keep
Oh,
cracking us up,
yeah.
little buddies.
Sam & Max fans are the best in the world.
How's that for you,
I'm Josh
devil?
Scorcher, and
What's going on? Oh, cat, no!
an earthquake? Either him in California or another boss list is on the way.
God!
Alright everyone, well that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out, peace.